Hey everyone, I'm Rachel. I have hamsters, and welcome to my podcast. So, this week I'm going to give you guys an update on all things mites and what I found out about where the mites might have come from, and how the treatment's going, and what else is going on in my hamster life. So, thank you for joining me today. So, if you don't know me, I'm Rachel, and I got hamsters. I got my first hamster in July of 2020 during the pandemic, and I just fell in love with them and their little antics. And I started off with a robo. His name was Steven. I still miss him every day. He's just my best bud. And he just opened me up to this whole new world. And it also got me really interested in how to take care of hamsters and how to make them happy, because there just wasn't. There were forums, but there wasn't a lot of roborovski specific information out there, and he was a robo. And I just felt like super lost. Like, where do I buy stuff? What's safe? It just felt like everything I got was wrong. And then I had to buy everything over again, and I'm not good at DIY stuff. So like making a bin cage was really hard, and it was a lot to learn. So then I started a website and I started a YouTube channel to sort of document my learning. And really I did it because when I watched other hamster YouTubers, I felt like they have these amazing setups, amazing cages. It's great to watch them. But I was like, well, where do I begin? First off, most of them had Syrian hamsters, so that wasn't very helpful. And then I also just didn't know where to begin. Like, a lot of them had DIY cages they made from, IKEA furniture. And I was like, I'm kind of broke and I live in an apartment in LA and I have no space and I don't have tools. Like, what can I buy? What can I buy that's actually usable for a hamster? What kind of stuff works for robos? How is their care different? I noticed that my robo was having trouble. He couldn't climb up things the way a Syrian could. And so you just have to think about the layout of the cage really differently. And it just became this whole world for me. And it's been super fun. And now I'm on my 7th hamster. So I had 5. I got 5 in California. Then I moved to the Midwest and I have 2 more now. One I got this year from Mel's Neighborhood Rodents. And she's this amazing hamster rescuer who drives around. She does these different routes. So sometimes she does Midwest, sometimes East Coast, sometimes South. And she picks up surrendered hamsters and then she finds homes for them. So it's really cool. So I got this really adorable dwarf hamster I named Maurice. I call him Mo. And he's the sweetest thing in the world. And then I really missed having a robo. So I also got a robo from Pet Supplies Plus. But he was on sale for $3 or $3.50. So, and he had been there for 7 or 8 months, they told me. So I felt like I wasn't really supporting the pet store at that point. I just was like, this guy's going to get eaten by a snake. Or I don't know. I just felt so bad for him. And it's a whole thing with Pet Supplies Plus too. I hadn't been in a pet store in a long time, and I went there to buy some millet, and then I shouldn't have, but I was like, let me just see what the conditions of the animals are, which is always I don't know. Oh, don't do it. Because then I want to take them all home. It always makes me sad. It was pretty bad. I mean, at Petco, I feel like they have flat saucers. At this Pet Supplies Plus, they had 4-inch wheels. I mean, those silent spinner KT ones. It was so bad. I mean, for robos, that's really small, but they're also very small animals. So it's okay, they can get by. But they had 4-inch wheels for the Chinese hamster. I mean, it was so sad. And I even talked to the manager, and she was like, she could not care less. So I left them a bad review on Google, hoping that it would get some corporate notice, or maybe just, it wasn't so much a bad review, but it just was I talked to them. I told them that the wheels need to be bigger. They told me that corporate doesn't allow them to use bigger wheels. And then I just posted this is what the wheel sizes should be. And, maybe someone will see it and they don't know that there's all these resources for correct hamster care. I've referenced the California Hamster Association. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it makes a difference. Maybe not. But all you can do is try. Anyway, so now I have a rowboat. His name is Thor. He came with a name, and I decided to just leave it since he was already, 7 or 8 months old, or maybe more because, yeah, he's probably more like 9 or 10 months old. Yeah, and then around Memorial Day, I noticed that Mo had mites, and not the fun kind, not like there's any fun kind, but he has rat mites or some type of rodent mite, which means that they come from other rodents, which was very confusing because I wasn't sure where they were coming from, and it has been quite the journey. So so far, if you haven't listened to my other podcast, so I know he has mites. I disinfected everything. I had tons of hamster stuff, so I baked and washed everything, put it in plastic bags and bins, and now those are sealed up. And then I vacuumed the heck out of my my home and used diatomaceous earth everywhere and vacuumed it up, and then which is like a natural insecticide that is not poisonous for mammals, but you don't want to breathe it in because it's sort of irritating. And then, and then I got them on Revolution from my vet, and they get that every 2 weeks behind their shoulder blades. So they just got their second treatment this week, and I put them in new bins. So every time they get a new treatment, I give them a new bin. So they're going to get three bin changes here. And so far so good. To be honest, ever since they started the treatment, I have not seen a mite. I was still getting bitten a little bit for a little while, and then that's gotten a lot better. I don't think I've gotten a bite this week at all. So we are on the up and up. But I still had not solved the mystery of where these mites came from. At first I thought maybe it was Thor, but Thor was not ground zero for the mites. Mo was. And I figured, it could have been Thor because he was my newest hamster, but I had already had him for over a month by the time the mites were an issue. And you would have thought, had he had mites at the pet store, I just don't know how that would have, I don't think it would have taken that long to show up. Okay, so now this week, I had to call pest control because I was getting a lot of carpenter ants in my kitchen. And I thought it was just this one hole. I was filling up this hole underneath the windowsill, and but they still kept coming in. I was like, oh, where are they coming from? And finally I just was losing my mind trying to clean up these ants and keep them out. And you see 1 or 2 ants, you're like, it's summer or it's getting to be warm. Ants are, they're around. It's not like I'm anti-ant. But they were sometimes they would be everywhere and sometimes I wouldn't see them. It was sort of hit or miss. And there was one night I came down and they were just everywhere again. I was trying to eat a snack and I just felt like I just kept seeing them on the counter, and it was oh my God, I can't do this. So I called Orkin and I was like, yeah, I have these ants. And they were like, oh yeah, you want to get rid of those because they burrow in wood and yeah, you definitely don't want to deal with those. So they came out. And then they're like, is there any, they generally do a full inspection. They're like, let's look at your home. We can look in your attic. So they look in my attic, and it turns out I have at least one bat up there, and then some mice. The mice were burrowing in the insulation. And then they also said I had some birds. They seem to think the mites, and then I was like, oh yeah, well, I'm also having this issue with mites on my hamsters, and I kind of wondered if there was a rodent problem that I wasn't seeing somewhere in my walls or something, and that's where the mites were coming from. And they're like, yeah, totally could be from this. So I don't know. I guess there's no guarantee, but it does feel like that seems to be the issue, is somewhere between having the mice or the bats in my attic. And there's also some holes around the vents of my roof. So there's vents that go out. So I guess there's really big holes there, which is how these animals are getting in. So that's a whole thing that now I have to get taken care of. And I just found out about that a couple days ago, and I've been trying to figure out financially how to do this. It's a little bit frustrating because I feel like now I'm like, oh, well, so if I finish this treatment for my hamsters, are the mites just going to come back unless I do this, big cleanup job in my attic? They suggested I need to just like rip out all the insulation and replace it. And they have to like, I guess bats are protected, and not that I want to kill an animal anyway, but like, there's this whole process for removing them. And so, I like bats just fine. I just don't want them cohabitating with me. They are definitely bearers of lots of diseases. So, as I learned during COVID, as probably many of us now know about. So, so that's my big development this week is possible source figured out, and it is possibly a result of some rodents, some flying or not flying rodents in my attic. So I feel like at least I'm not crazy. I was really beating myself up for getting Thor. I mean, I thought I did everything right with him. I put him in a small, like 100 quart bin. I kept him in a separate room. I watched him for like a month. I didn't post anything about him because I just was like, it's like a new baby. Like, it's just like, let's see how he does. I don't want to like like, I don't know if he's going to have any health problems or how he's going to do. And he's been living in this like tiny cage for 8 months, and who knows what kind of care he had. And and it seemed like everything was fine with him. I put him in a bigger cage. I didn't see any mites. So I set him up in a 200 quart bin, and then I kept him in that for a little while. And then eventually I moved him into the same room as Mo. And then I had just set up a new Night Angel Vista. I got him a size medium. I wanted large, but they didn't have large. So he has a medium, Mo has a large. And I had just set it up. He was so happy. He was running around eating all the sprays. And that's when I found the mites on Mo. So I just am not convinced that they came from Thor. I think between the two cage changes, I would have noticed them, and I would have been getting bitten, right? And I didn't. So that is like confusion number one. I guess the second cage change, when I did notice that Mo had mites, I did check his cage, Thor's cage, very thoroughly, and I did find two like mites big enough that I could like see them. But in Mo's cage, they were like everywhere, like tiny, tiny little, you could see them on the paper bedding, like where he was sleeping. I mean, it was like everywhere. So yeah, I think it's in my house, which is like really icky. I don't know. I don't know how safe I should feel. The pest control people did spray some stuff that, again, is not unsafe for mammals, only bad for the insects. But they sprayed it along my baseboards and around the light fixtures. So hopefully they can't come down anymore from the attic. But I feel like until I get this taken care of, until I get the roof sealed up and take care of what is existing up there, I think it's just going to be an issue. So yeah, I don't know. So that's my latest development on the mite issue. And it's been very eye-opening, I suppose. This has been a new hamster care journey experience. And I guess every time I go through something with my hamsters, it's been really enlightening. I learn a lot about hamster healthcare and all these things. The biggest bummer right now is I have not really been interacting with them much. Like, I was starting to work with Thor and Mo to get them like a little bit more hand friendly. Like, Mo is super sweet, but he's kind of like, he's not very outgoing. So he's a little bit shy and not comfortable with hands. So I was practicing like putting him in a playpen and me just sitting there and letting him kind of run around me and like feeding him seeds. And then Thor, I was just practicing letting him in a playpen at all. Just kind of letting him get comfortable being out of his cage and feeling good about that. So I just feel kind of frustrated that like now for the next 2 months, I'm kind of keeping them in their little bins. Like, I guess I've been feeding them from my hands again. I was really avoiding touching them at all just because of the mites, and I was getting so many bites. But yeah, I think now I'm not seeing any mites on them. We just did this cage clean, and I had no problems. So I didn't see anything. So I think they're okay, but I still am just like, oh, we should keep them in their bins for now. But it's just sad. I'm just like, oh, I really wanted hamsters so I could interact with them. And they're both so sweet. And Thor especially is like very excited to see you. I can't tell. He might be slightly aggressive. Like he kind of runs towards your hand in a cage and sniffs at it or kind of paws at you. So I don't know if that's going to turn into something a little bit more like a bite, but we'll see. Yeah, it was just such a bummer. And it's a bummer because I would love to, I don't know. It's hard. I was looking at some Facebook rehoming groups, and there's this like really sweet dwarf hamster that needs a home that's not too far from me. But I'm like, I can't do that now. I can't do it now until the mite situation is taken care of. And I know it's taken care of because I just like can't go through this again. This is really rough. So anyway, if you have a mite problem, you might also have a rodent problem or a bat problem. So just keep that in mind. And of course, I mean, they can come in from the outside or something if you live like, the reality is mice come in homes at, different times of the year when the weather changes, is more common. So it's not like that crazy, but ideally they wouldn't come with mites that then go find your hamster. So, oh gosh. Anyway, yeah, so that's mainly what's going on for me. I'm happy that, I had moved them out of my office and put them in another room. Well, I cleaned my office like crazy, and then now I've moved them back into the office just yesterday because I felt like, okay, this room has been cleaned to death, and also they sprayed. So now they're back in here, and it is really nice because I love working here, and then when they wake up, I can see them and just kind of check on them. And I will say the nice thing about having them in small bins is even though I know it's not fun for them, it's fun for me because I can see where they're sleeping, and they come out a little bit more, so I get a little bit more interaction with them. And they're just so sweet, and I can't wait. I can't wait to hold them again. One day soon. Yeah, so that's about all that's going on in my hamster life. I did discover a new roborovski channel that I posted on my website. It is called, wait, let me look it up. It's really nice. And, I don't think there's like a lot of people who just post about robos. And this person, she is really experienced with them. Let's see here. It's called Steph. What is she called? Steph Roborovski Care. And I will put a link in this episode. So if you're into robos, I highly recommend checking it out. Or if you're a new robo owner, I think robos are just like their own total thing. And you just kind of have to like listen to them and get to know them. And she has some great tips and advice. I mean, a lot of it is what I would say kind of for most hamsters, but she's really specifying robos. And I think she does have some good thoughts about safety with robos because they are so fast and kind of unpredictable. I think that, she's like, don't stand up while holding them. There's some things like they're just little beings that like you kind of have to treat them a little differently so that you don't injure them or scare them, and that you kind of allow them to flourish and become their own thing. I think in the case of Steven, for example, my first robo, I mean, it took 8 months before I even could pet him. And by the end of his life, he was over 2 years old. I think I had him for just over 2 years. Yeah. He would totally let me give him like a full body massage. He was so sweet. He would eat from my hands. He was not scared of me pretty much at all. But it takes a long time, and you really have to build up to that trust. And I think it can be when you're a new hamster owner, you're like, this feels hopeless. You're like, this animal is crazy. I'm never going to get to the bottom of this. So I think her videos are really great. And it looks like she just released another one on how to tame and handle them. So I will link to it in the show notes here and on my website if you'd like to check it out. And again, if you ever want to reach out to me, I am at rachelgothamsters@gmail.com. Feel free to send me an email, tell me what's up, ask me a question, whatever it is. And hopefully soon I'm going to reach out to a hamster breeder and we can do a little interview about what it's like to breed hamsters. There's someone I saw on Instagram who's going to start breeding robos in the United States, which I'm super excited about because we don't really have any ethical sources of robos, but I love them. And I would love to hear how they're going about it and what they're, how they're learning and all that good stuff. So I think it'd be really cool to chat with them. So I hope you all are having a wonderful hamster weekend, and I hope to see you in my next podcast episode.